How are you guys doing? Today is Sunday, December 5th, 2021. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to review the Elite matchups and performances from yesterday, Saturday, December 4th, 2021. Taking a quick step back and looking where we are as we are coming close to the end of this 2021 calendar year. Looking first at what's going on at the collegiate level, the college football season the regular season is now over after yesterday's conference championships, as now there are bowl games left to play. On the college basketball side of things, they are just getting underway as basketball. We are going to be going on with basketball till early April. In terms of what's going on at the pro level at the NFL, we are about to, today is the 13th Sunday of the 18-week regular season. So we are just about to enter the third of the season. And not to mention that in basketball, we are about a month into the season as well. Not to mention that since we are nearing the end of the 2021 calendar year, we are almost at the halfway point of the international soccer schedule as well. So with that, starting with what's going on at the collegiate football level, looking at what's going on with the final regular season games of the 2021 regular season, starting off with the SEC championship game, looking at the number one team in the nation, the Georgia Bulldogs faced off against the Alabama Crimson Tide. In this matchup going in, Georgia would come in 12-0. Alabama came in 11-1. Alabama would end up beating Georgia 41-24 as the third-ranked Crimson Tide outscored the Bulldogs 24-17 in the first half, and then they outscored Georgia 17-7 in the second half. The Bulldogs on the losing end of this matchup were led by their starting quarterback, Stetson Bennett. Bennett threw for 340 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. He also ran for an additional 11 yards. That's 351 total yards of offense. Georgia's leading receiver, Brock Bowers, had 10 receptions for 139 yards and one of the team's 3 receiving touchdowns. On the defensive side of the ball, Lewis Klein had the team's lead in tackles as he had 7 of them. On the winning end of this matchup, the third-ranked Alabama Crimson Tide were led by their sophomore starting quarterback, Bryce Young. Bryce Young would end up throwing for 421 yards as he would end up throwing for 3 touchdowns as well. He would run for 3. He would have 3 carries for 41 yards as he had an additional touchdown on the ground. He would finish with 461 total yards of offense as he had 4 touchdowns on the day. Their leading rusher, Brian Robinson Jr., had 55 yards on the ground and 16 through the air. He had 73 total yards of offense. Alabama's leading receiver, Jamison Williams, had 7 receptions for 184 yards and 2 touchdowns. Their second leading receiver, John Mechie III, had 6 receptions for 97 yards as he had the third receiving touchdown of the day for Alabama. On the defensive side of the ball, DeMarco Hellams would finish with the most tackles on the team as he had 9 of them. And then Jordan Battle and DeMarco Hellams would finish with the team's interceptions. Jordan Battle's interception would end up going 42 yards for a pick 6, as he would also finish with 6 tackles on the day. With this win, the third-ranked Alabama Crimson Tide are the SEC champs as they finished their season with a 12-1 record, and they finished their season with a 7-1 record in the SEC, or I guess following their record where they had a 7-1 record in the SEC. With this loss, the first-ranked Georgia Bulldogs are now 12-1 after they finished their SEC season 8-0. But that's how the SEC matchup finished. Taking a look at what's going on with the Big Ten matchup, looking at the second-ranked team in the nation, the Michigan Wolverines faced off against the 13th-ranked Iowa Hawkeyes, and Michigan would end up destroying Iowa. They outscored them, or they would win the game 42-3 as they basically earned their way into the college football playoff. Michigan outscored Iowa 14-3 in the first half, let alone the first quarter by itself, and Michigan would shut Iowa out 28-0 in the second half. On the losing end of this matchup, the 13th ranked Hawkeyes were led by their starting quarterback, Spencer Petras. He threw for 137 yards. Their leading receiver, Sam Laporta, had 6 receptions for 62 yards. Their second leading rusher, Tyler Goodson, had 18 carries for for 50 yards. He had 6 receptions for 28 yards as he had 78 yards on the day. On the defensive side of the ball, Jack Corner led the team in tackles as he had 8 of them. Jack Campbell and Jermari Harris would have the team's 2 interceptions. And on the winning end of this matchup, the second-ranked Michigan Wolverines were led by their starting quarterback, Cade McNamara. Cade McNamara threw for 169 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. He also ran for 6 yards. That's 175 total yards of offense. Their second leading passer, Donovan Edwards, he completed his only pass for 75 yards as that was a receiving touchdown. He also had 3 carries for 1 yard and a rushing touchdown, so that's 2 touchdowns to his name. And then not to mention, Michigan's leading rusher, Blake Corum, would finish with 5 carries for 74 yards as he had a touchdown. Hassan Haskins, their second leading rusher, had 17 carries for 56 yards as he had 2 rushing touchdowns. Michigan's leading receiver, Roman Wilson, had 2 receptions for 82 yards as he had a receiving touchdown as well. And on the defensive side of the ball, Josh Ross led the Wolverines in tackle as he had 9 of them. With this win, in addition to him, Caden Colsar had the team's lone interception. But with this win, the Michigan Wolverines are now 12-1 after they finished their Big Ten season 8-1. With this loss, the Iowa Hawkeyes are now 10-3 after they finished their Big Ten season 7-2. Now taking a look at what went down in the American Conference Championship game as the 4th-ranked Cincinnati Bearcats faced off against the 21st-ranked Houston Cougars. Cincy would end up beating Houston 35-20 to edge their name into the college football playoff. Cincy outscored Houston 14-13 in the first half, and then they would outscore Houston 21-7 in the second in order to punch their ticket. On the losing end of this matchup, the 21st-ranked Houston Cougars were led by their starting quarterback, Clayton Tune. Tune threw for 250 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception as he ran for an additional 21. He had 271 total yards of offense for the day, and through the air, Nathaniel Dell had the team's most receiving yards. He had 9 receptions for 152 yards as he had one of the team's 2 receiving touchdowns. Their second leading receiver, Jake Herslow, had 5 receptions for 57 yards as he had the team's other receiving touchdown. On the defensive side of the ball, Gervarius Owens would finish with 8 tackles on the day, and on the winning end of this matchup, the 4th-ranked Cincinnati Bearcats were led by their starting quarterback, Desmond Ridder. Ridder threw for 190 yards and 3 touchdowns as he ran for an additional 19. That's 209 total yards of offense for him. Cincy's leading rusher, Jerome Ford, finished with 18 carries for 187 yards and both of the team's rushing touchdowns. He would also have a 17-yard reception, so that's 204 total yards of offense for him. Cincy's leading receiver, Alec Pierce, had 2 receptions for 65 yards as he had a receiving touchdown. On the defensive side of the ball, Ty Van Fossen and Darian Beavers finished with 9 tackles on the day. Joel Dublanco had 7 tackles as he had 2 sacks. Curtis Brooks had 4 tackles as he had a sack and a half. Cincy would combine for 8 of them. And Joel Dublanco would also have the team's lone interception alongside his sack and a half. Alongside his 2 sacks. With this win, the 4th-ranked Cincinnati Bearcats are now 13-0 after they finished with an 8-0 American Conference record. And with this loss, the 21st-ranked Houston Cougars are now 11-2 after they finished also with an undefeated record in the same division. It eventually led to them meeting at the same road here, but Cincy was the team to make it through, and now that they've made it through, there's not much of an argument against them making it into the playoff. Taking a look at what went down in the Big 12 championship with the 5th-ranked team in the nation, the Oklahoma State Cowboys faced off against the 9th-ranked Baylor Bears in this Big 12 championship game. And in this matchup, Baylor did end up beating Oklahoma. They won this one 20-16. And also looking back at the season, they did end up losing to Oklahoma State 24-14 way back when. That was Baylor's only loss coming into this matchup, so they were actually able to right this wrong. And as Baylor outscored Oklahoma State 21-6 in the first half. Oklahoma State they shut Baylor out 10-0 in the second half, but it wouldn't be enough. On the losing end of this matchup, Spencer Sanders, their Oklahoma State starting quarterback, would throw for 257 yards as he had 4 interceptions. He also was the team's leading rusher as he had 33 yards on the ground, finishing with 290 total yards of offense. Oklahoma State's leading receiver, Tay Martin, had 9 receptions for 88 yards. On the defensive side of the ball, their leading tackler was Malcolm Rodriguez. He had 12 of them on the day. Colin Oliver had 3 tackles as he had 2 sacks. And on the winning end of this matchup, the 9th-ranked Baylor Bears were led by their starting quarterback, Blake Shapen. He threw for 180 yards and 3 touchdowns. Their leading rusher, Abram Smith, finished with 63 yards on the ground. Their leading receiver, Tyquan Thornton, had 6 receptions for 71 yards as he had one of the team's 3 receiving touchdowns. Their leading tackler, Terrell Bernard and Dylan Doyle, each finished with 10 tackles on the day as Bernard finished with half of a sack. And then looking at the 4 players that each had an interception, J.T. Woods, Braden Utley, Jaron McVeigh, and Matt Jones each added a Big 12 championship interceptions to their resumes. And with this win, the 9th-ranked Baylor Bears are now 11-2 after they finished with a 7-2 record in the Big 12. One of their 2 losses coming to Oklahoma State. And with this loss, the 5th-ranked Oklahoma State Cowboys are now 11-2 as they finished their season with an 8-1 record after they finished with an 8-1 record in the conference. Now taking a look at what is going on with the ACC championship, looking at the 15th-ranked team in the nation, the Pittsburgh Panthers faced off against the 16th-ranked Wake Forest Demon Deacons. Pittsburgh would end up beating Wake Forest 45-21 after Pitt outscored Wake Forest 24-21 in the first half, and then shut them out 21-0 in the second half. On the losing end of this matchup, the Demon Deacons were led by their starting quarterback, Sam Hartman. Hartman threw for 213 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. He also had a rushing touchdown on the ground, so he had 3 total touchdowns to his name. Wake Forest's leading receiver, Taylor Morin, had 4 receptions for 83 yards as he had a touchdown. Their second leading receiver, A.T. Perry, had 5 receptions for 54 yards as he had a receiving touchdown as well. On the defensive side of the ball, Ryan Semenda Jr. would finish with 11 total tackles on the day, and then their defensive lineman Luigi Villain would finish with 3 tackles and 2 sacks on the day. And on the winning end of this matchup, the 15th-ranked Pittsburgh Panthers were led by their starting quarterback, Heisman candidate Kenny Pickett. He threw for 253 yards and 2 touchdowns as he would run for an additional 20 yards and a touchdown. He had 273 total yards of offense and 3 touchdowns in his name. Their leading rusher, Israel Abanikanda, would finish with 9 carries for 55 yards as he had 2 rushing touchdowns on the day. Their leading receiver, Jordan Addison, had 8 receptions for 126 yards as well. On the defensive side of the ball, Pittsburgh's leading tackler was Servasia Dennis. He had 12 tackles as he had 2 sacks on the day as well. Eric Hallett finished with 2 interceptions as one of them ended up being returned for a touchdown as he also had 2 tackles with his 2 interceptions. A.J. Woods and Marquise Williams would finish with the 2 other interceptions. With this win, the 15th-ranked Pittsburgh Panthers are now the ACC champs for the 2021 year. They finished with an 11-2 record after they finished with a 7-1 record in the ACC. With this loss, the 16th-ranked Wake Forest Demon Deacons are now 10-3 after they finished their ACC season with a 7-1 record. Now, taking a look at what went down in the Mountain West Championship game, taking a look at the 19th ranked team in the nation, the San Diego State Aztecs faced off against the unranked Utah State Aggies, and Utah State would beat the brakes off of the Aztecs. They won this one 46-13. Utah State outscored San Diego State 14-3 in the first half before outscoring them 32-10 10 in the second. On the losing end of this matchup, the 19th ranked San Diego State Aztecs were led by their starting quarterback, Jordan Brookshire. He threw for 117 yards and he ran for 5. That's 122 total yards of offense. Their leading receiver, Jesse Matthews, had 8 receptions for 82 yards as he had the lone receiving touchdown of the day. And the Aztecs were led on defense and tackles by CJ Baskerville as he had 8 tackles on the day. And then in the secondary, Patrick McMorris would finish with the team's lone interception. On the winning end of this matchup, the unranked Utah State Aggies were led by their starting quarterback, Logan Bonner. Bonner threw for 318 yards, 4 touchdowns, and an interception. The Utah State Aggies leading rusher, Calvin Tyler Jr., had 41 yards on the ground with a touchdown. He had 7 receiving yards through the air. He had 48 total yards. Their leading receiver, Brandon Bowling, had 8 receptions for 154 yards and 2 touchdowns. Their second leading receiver, Derek Wright, had 6 receptions for 57 yards as he had a touchdown for himself. And on the defensive side of the ball, Justin Rice and Hunter Reynolds each finished with 10 tackles each. Justin Rice had a sack. Byron Vaughns finished with 6 tackles as he had a sack and a half. Marcus Morris finished with 5 tackles as he had a sack and a half. With this win, the unranked Utah State Aggies are now 10-3 after they finished with a 6-2 record in the Mountain West. With this loss, the 19th ranked San Diego State Aztecs are now 11-2 after they finished with a 7-1 record in the Mountain West for themselves. Last but not least, taking a look at what went down in the Sun Belt Conference Championship game. And of course, with that, I got to take a look at what went down with the 24th ranked team in the nation. And in this case, we saw this matchup go down between the Louisiana Raging Cajuns and they saw them face off against the Appalachian State Mountaineers. Louisiana would end up beating Appalachian State 24-16 after they outscored Appalachian 17-7 in the first half. Appalachian State would outscore the Raging Cajuns 9-7 in the second half. And looking at how it would really come down, Louisiana really put it out of reach. Appalachian State would bring it to within a touchdown, but after their 2-point conversion failed, they would not really get more chances. On the winning end of this matchup, the Louisiana Raging Cajuns were led by their starting quarterback, Levi Lewis. Levi Lewis threw for 210 yards and a touchdown. He also ran for an additional 43 yards and a rushing touchdown. That would be he finished with 253 total yards of offense on the day. Louisiana's leading rusher, Imani Bailey, had 14 carries for 117 yards and a touchdown. He had 3 receptions for 29 yards on the day as he would go on to finish with 146 total yards of offense. And then on the defensive side of the ball, the Raging Cajuns were led in tackles by Cam Petesclo and Farad Gardner as they each finished with 7 tackles each. Zion Hill would finish with 5 tackles as he had 2 sacks on the day as well. And with this win, the 24th ranked Raging Cajuns finished their season with a 12-1 record after they finished with an 8-0 undefeated Sun Belt record. And with this loss, the unranked Appalachian State Mountaineers finished with a 10-3 record as they would go on to finish with a 7-1 record in the Sun Belt Conference. Taking a look at what went down on the basketball side of collegiate athletics, starting with the 3rd-ranked team in the nation, the Gonzaga Bulldogs faced off against the 16th-ranked Alabama Crimson Tide. Alabama would end up giving Gonzaga their 2nd loss of the season. They would beat Gonzaga 91-82. Alabama won this game by 9 after they outscored Gonzaga by 16 in the first half. On the losing end of this matchup, the Gonzaga Bulldogs were led in scoring by their starting forward, Drew Timme. Their junior out of Texas would go on to finish with 23 points and 10 rebounds, as well as 2 blocks in 35 minutes. He shot 10 for 19 from the field on the night. And on the winning end of this matchup, the 16th ranked Crimson Tide were led in scoring by their starting guard, Jaden Shackelford. Shackelford finished with 28 points and 9 rebounds in 38 minutes. He shot 10 for 16 from the field, 6 for 8 from 3, and 2 for 3 from the foul line. Off the bench for Alabama, their guard, J.D. Davidson, their freshman, would go on to finish with 20 points and 5 rebounds in 27 minutes as he shot 6 for 10 from the field, 4 for 6 from 3, and a perfect 4 for 4 from the foul line. With this win, the 16th ranked Crimson Tide are 7-1 on the season, and with this loss, the third-ranked Gonzaga Bulldogs are now 7-2. Taking a look at what's going on with the fourth-ranked team in the nation, the reigning national champs, the Baylor Bears, hosted the unranked Arkansas Pine Bluff Golden Lions. Baylor would end up beating Pine Bluff 99-54. They won this game by 45 after they outscored Pine Bluff by 23 in the first half and by 22 in the second. The fourth-ranked Bears would be led in scoring by their guard off the bench, Lucas Cryer. Cryer would go on to finish with 20 points in 24 minutes, LJ Cryer would end up with 20 points in 24 minutes as he shot 7 for 14 from the field, 4 for 9 from 3 as well. With this win, the fourth-ranked Baylor Bears are now 8-0 on the season, and with this loss, unranked Arkansas Pine Bluff is now 1-9 on its season. Looking at the sixth-ranked team in the nation, the Villanova Wildcats hosted the unranked St. Joseph's Hawks. Villanova would beat St. Joe's 81-52. They won this game by 29 after they outscored St. Joe's by 12 in the first half and by 17 in the second half. The sixth-ranked Wildcats would be led in scoring by their starting guard, Colin Gillespie. Colin Gillespie would go on to finish with 23 points in 31 minutes as he shot 7 for 12 from the field, 5 for 7 from 3, and a perfect 4 for 4 from the foul line. With this win, the sixth-ranked Wildcats are now 6-2 on the season, and with this loss, the unranked Hawks are now 4-4 on their season. Looking at the 10th-ranked team in the nation, the Arkansas Razorbacks hosted the unranked they would go on to face off against the unranked Little Rock Trojans. The Razorbacks would beat the Trojans 93-28. Arkansas outscored Little Rock by 15 in the first half, and they had a pretty even second half. On the winning end of this matchup, the undefeated Razorbacks would be led in scoring by their starting guards. Audi's Tony would finish with 18 points and 8 rebounds in 38 minutes as he shot 6 for 7 from the field. He would go on to make his only 3-point attempt, and alongside him, Arkansas's starting senior guard out of Georgia, J.D. Notae, would finish with 18 points and 2 steals in 28 minutes. He shot 7 for 13 from the field and a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. With this win, the 10th-ranked Arkansas Razorbacks are now 8-0. With this loss, the unranked Little Rock Trojans are now 4-5 on the season. Looking at the 12th-ranked team in the nation, the BYU Cougars face off against the unranked Missouri State Bears in Missouri. BYU would end up beating Missouri State 74-68 after they outscored Missouri State by 8 in the first quarter. The BYU Cougars were led in scoring by their starting guard, Alex Barcelo. He finished with 21 points and 4 steals in 34 minutes. He shot 7 for 13 from the field on the day, and with this win, the 12th-ranked BYU Cougars are 7-1. With this loss, unranked Missouri State is now 4-4. Taking a look at the 13th-ranked Tennessee Volunteers, the Vols went to unranked Colorado, and they would end up beating the Buffaloes 69-54 after they outscored Colorado by 10 in the first and by 5 in the second. The 13th-ranked Volunteers on the winning end of this matchup were led in scoring by their starting guard, Kennedy Chandler, their freshman out of Memphis. Chandler would go on to finish with 27 points in 36 minutes. He shot 13 for 20 from the field, and with this win, the 13th-ranked Tennessee Volunteers are 6-1. With this loss, the unranked Colorado Buffs are now 6-3. Looking at the 17th-ranked team in the nation, the Yukon Huskies, hosted the unranked Grambling Tigers. Yukon ended up beating Grambling 88-59 as they outscored the Tigers by 17 in the first half and by 12 in the second. 17th-ranked Yukon would be led in scoring by their starting guard, R.J. Cole. He finished with 18 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, and 4 steals in 27 minutes. Cole shot 4 for 14 from the field and 10 for 11 from the foul line. With this win, the 17th-ranked Yukon Huskies are 8-1, and with this loss, the unranked Grambling Tigers are 3-6. Taking a look now at what's going on with the 18th-ranked team in the nation, the Memphis Tigers went to Ole Miss to face off against the unranked Rebels. Ole Miss would end up beating Memphis 67-63 after they outscored the Tigers by 4 in the first half. On the losing end of this matchup, the Memphis Tigers were led in scoring by their starting forward, DeAndre Williams, their starting senior out of Houston, Texas, would go on to finish with 13 points and 2 steals in 23 minutes. He went on to shoot 5 for 7 from the field and 3 for 6 from the foul line. Their elite forward off the bench, Imani Bates, would finish with 7 points and 4 rebounds in 24 minutes as he shot 1 for 10 from the field and 5 for 7 from the foul line. On the winning end of this matchup, the Rebels were led in scoring by their starting guard, Jarkel Joyner. Their starting senior out of Mississippi would go on to finish with 20 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 steals. He did all this in 37 minutes as he shot 6 for 13 from the field and 7 for 8 from the foul line. With this win, the unranked Ole Miss Rebels are now 6-2. With this loss, the 18th ranked Memphis Tigers are now 5-3 on the season. Taking a look at what's going on with the 19th ranked team in the nation, the Iowa State Cyclones went to Creighton to face off against the unranked Blue Jays in Nebraska. And the Cyclones would end up beating the Blue Jays 64-58 after they outscored Creighton by 6 in the second half in this Big East Big 12 matchup. On the winning end of this matchup, the Iowa State Cyclones ended up being led in scoring by their guard off the bench, Caleb Grill. Their junior out of Wichita, Kansas, would finish with 16 points and 2 steals in 24 minutes. He shot 5 for 7 from the field, a perfect 4 for 4 from 3, and a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. With this win, the 19th ranked Iowa State Cyclones are now 8-0. With this loss, the unranked Creighton Blue Jays are now 7-2 on the season. Taking a look at what's going on with the 20th ranked team in the nation, the USC Trojans were able to beat the unranked Washington State Cougars 63-61 after they outscored the Cougars by 4 points in the second half. The 20th ranked Trojans, were led in scoring by their starting forward, Chavez Goodwin. Their starting senior out of Columbia, South Carolina, will go on to finish with 14 points and 5 rebounds in 23 minutes. Chavez Goodwin shot 6 for 11 from the field and a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. With this win, the 20th ranked USC Trojans are now 8-0 as they are 2-0 in the ACC. With this loss, the unranked Washington State Cougars are now 6-2 as they are 1-1 in the Pac-12. Looking at the 21st ranked team in the nation, the Auburn Tigers hosted the unranked Yale Bulldogs. Auburn was able to beat Yale 86-64 by 22 after they outscored Yale by 17 in the first half and by 5 in the second. The 21st ranked Tigers would be led in scoring by their starting guard, KD Johnson. He finished with 19 points in 21 minutes. He shot 7 for 12 from the field, 3 for 7 from 3, and a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. With this win, the 21st ranked Auburn Tigers are now 7-1. With this loss, the unranked Yale Bulldogs are now 5-5. Taking a look now at what's going on with the 22nd ranked team in the nation, the Michigan State Spartans hosted the unranked Toledo Rockets. Michigan State would end up beating Toledo 81-68 after the Spartans outscored the Rockets by 20 in the first half. The Spartans, the 22nd ranked team in the nation, were led in scoring by their starting guard, Max Christie. Their starting freshman out of Illinois would go on to finish with 14 points in 28 minutes. He shot 4 for 14 from the field and a perfect 4 for 4 from the foul line. With this win, the 22nd ranked Michigan State Spartans are 7-2. With this loss, the unranked Toledo Rockets are 6-2 on the year. Taking a look at now what's going on with the 23rd ranked team in the nation, the Wisconsin Badgers hosted the unranked Marquette Golden Eagles. Wisconsin would end up beating Marquette 89-76 after they outscored Marquette by 13 in the second half. The 23rd ranked Badgers were led in scoring by their starting guard, Johnny Davis. Their starting sophomore out of Wisconsin would go on to finish with 25 points and 5 rebounds in 30 minutes. He shot 9 for 14 from the field, made his only 3-point attempt of the night, and he shot 6 of 8 from the foul line. Their starting guard, Brad Davison, will go on to finish with his 20 points. He did all this in 33 minutes as he shot 6 for 12 from the field, 4 for 8 from 3, and 4 for 5 from the foul line. With this win, the 23rd ranked Wisconsin Badgers are now 7-1. With this loss, the unranked Marquette Golden Eagles are now 7-2. Not last but not least, looking at the 24th ranked team in the nation, the Michigan Wolverines hosted the unranked San Diego State Aztecs, and in this matchup, the Wolverines would end up beating the Aztecs 72-58, the same day that their football team won the Big Ten championship. Michigan would end up outscoring San Diego State by 12 to win this game by 14. The 24th ranked Wolverines were led in scoring by their starting center, Hunter Dickinson. Their sophomore out of Alexandria, Virginia, would finish with 23 points, 14 rebounds, and 3 steals in 39 minutes as he shot 10 for 16 from the field, a perfect 3 for 3 from 3 as well. With this win, the 24th ranked Michigan Wolverines are 5-3. With this loss, the unranked San Diego State Aztecs are also 5-3. And now, last but not least, taking a look at what's going on with the 25th ranked team in the nation, the Seton Hall Pirates would face off against the unranked Nyack College Warriors. Seton Hall would end up beating Nyack 113-67. They, of course, would win this matchup by 46 after Seton Hall outscored Nyack by 14 in the first half, and then by 32 in the second. On the winning end of this matchup, the 25th ranked Seton Hall Pirates were led in scoring by their guard off the bench, Jameer Harris. Their senior out of North Brunswick, New Jersey, would finish with 23 points in 28 minutes as he shot 7 for 12 from the field, 6 for 8 from 3, and a perfect 3 for 3 from the foul line. Their forward off the bench, Tyree Samuel, would finish with 22 points in 26 minutes alongside 12 rebounds. He shot 8 for 14 from the field and 6 for 7 from the foul line. And then Seton Hall's forward off the bench, Trey Jackson, would finish with 21 points and 7 rebounds in 28 minutes as he shot 8 for 10 from the field, 3 for 5 from 3 as well. And with their 3 players off the bench with at least 20 points, the 25th ranked Seton Hall Pirates are now 7-1 as they remain undefeated at home. And with a lot of football coming up tomorrow, there was no NFL yesterday, as it will continue tomorrow. Taking a look at what's going on in the NBA, starting off in Madison Square Garden, the New York Knicks hosted the Denver Nuggets. The Nuggets would end up beating the Knicks 113-99. The Nuggets, featuring the reigning MVP, would win this game by 14 after they outscored the Knicks by 19 points over the first 3 quarters. The Knicks on the losing end, or by 21 in the first 3 quarters, On the losing end of this matchup, the New York Knicks were led in scoring by their former all-star starting power forward, Julius Randle. He finished with 24 points, 7 rebounds, and 8 assists in 35 minutes. Randle would go on to shoot 9 for 8 from the field and 4 for 5 from the foul line. On the winning end of this matchup, the Denver Nuggets were led in scoring by their elite center, the reigning NBA MVP, Nikola Jokic. He finished with 32 points, 11 rebounds, and 5 assists in 27 minutes as this year's MVP. Shot 14 for 19 from the field, 3 for 7 from 3, and he would go on to make his only free throw attempt of the day. With this win, before I get into that, off the bench, Denver's starting power forward, Zeke Naji, out of Arizona, would go on to finish with his 21 points and 8 rebounds in 34 minutes. He shot 7 for 13 from the field, 5 for 9 from 3, and he made both of his free throw attempts on the night. With this win, the Denver Nuggets are now 11-11. With this loss, the New York Knicks are now 11-12. Taking a look at what went down in Brooklyn, same city, different borough, the Brooklyn Nets hosted the Chicago Bulls. The Bulls would end up beating the Nets 111-107. They won this game by 4 after they had to outscore the Nets by 7 to overcome their 3-point deficit. On the losing end of this matchup, the Brooklyn Nets were led in scoring by their goated starting power forward, Kevin Durant. Durant would go on to finish with 28 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 blocks in 38 minutes. Durant shot 12 for 26 from the field, 2 for 6 from 3, and a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. Their starting center, LaMarcus Aldridge, finished with 20 points and 7 rebounds in 33 minutes. He shot 10 for 17 from the field on the day, and the Nets' elite starting shooting guard, James Harden, former NBA MVP, would finish with 14 points, 7 rebounds, and 14 assists in 40 minutes. Harden shot 5 for 21 from the field, 1 for 5 from 3, and 3 for 4 from the foul line. The Chicago Bulls were led in scoring by their starting shooting guard out of UCLA, Zach LaVine. LaVine finished with 31 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists in 37 minutes. He shot 9 for 20 from the field, and he shot 11 for 13 from the foul line. Their starting small forward, DeMar DeRozan, finished with 29 points and 6 rebounds in 38 minutes. He shot 13 for 24 from the field, 1 for 2 from 3 as well. With this win, the Chicago Bulls are now 16-8. With this loss, the Brooklyn Nets are now 16-7. Taking a look at what went down in Milwaukee, the reigning NBA champs, Milwaukee Bucks, hosted the Miami Heat. The Bucks would end up beating the Heat 124-102, winning this game at home by 22 as they outscored the Miami Heat by 17 points in the first half and by a subsequent 12 in the third. The Miami Heat on the losing end of this matchup were led in scoring by their starting guard, Max Strus. Max Strus, their second-year man out of DePaul, will go on to finish with 25 points in 24 minutes. Strus shot 8 for 13 from the field, 6 for 9 from 3, and a perfect 3 for 3 from the foul line. Their starting point guard, Kyle Lowry, would finish with 10 points, 2 rebounds, and 7 assists in 28 minutes. And Lowry shot 4 for 12 from the field, 1 for 7 from 3, and 1 for 3 from the foul line. On the winning end of this matchup, the Milwaukee Bucks were led in scoring by their starting shooting guard out of Notre Dame, Pat Connaughton. Connaughton finished with 23 points in 29 minutes as he shot 8 for 15 from the field and 3 for 7 from 3. Additionally, in the Bucks starting lineup, their starting small forward, Chris Middleton, would go on to finish with 22 points, 6 rebounds, and 9 assists in 30 minutes. Middleton finished shooting 9 for 18 from the field, 3 for 8 from 3, and he made his only free throw attempt on the night. With this win, the Milwaukee Bucks are now 15-9. With this loss, the Miami Heat are now 14-10, to give a sense of where they are. Taking a look at what's going on in Dallas, the Mavericks hosted the Memphis Grizzlies, and the Grizzlies would end up beating the Mavericks 97-90. The Grizzlies would end up, they would win this game by 7 after they outscored the Mavericks by 12 in the first half. On the losing end of this matchup, the Mavericks were led in scoring by their small forward off the bench, Tim Hardaway Jr. Tim Hardaway Jr. finished with 29 points and 7 rebounds, as well as 2 steals in 31 minutes. He shot 7 for 18 from the field, 5 for 9 from 3, and he made 10 of his 14 free throws on the night. On the winning end of this matchup, the Memphis Grizzlies were led in scoring by their starting shooting guard out of TSU, Desmond Bane. He finished with 29 points and 9 rebounds in 34 minutes. He shot 12 for 20 from the field, 4 for 6 from 3, and he made his only free throw attempt of the night. With this win, the Memphis Grizzlies are now 13-10. With this loss, the Dallas Mavericks are now 11-11. Taking a look at what went down in San Francisco, the Golden State Warriors hosted the San Antonio Spurs. The Spurs would end up beating the Warriors 112-107. They won this game by 5 after they outscored the Warriors by 15 in the first quarter. The Warriors on the losing end of this matchup were led in scoring by their goated starting point guard, Stephen Curry. Stephen Curry finished with 27 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, and 3 steals in 37 minutes. He shot 7 for 8 from the field, 7 for 28 from the field, 5 for 17 from 3, and he shot 8 for 9 from the foul line on the day. On the winning end of this matchup, the Spurs were led in scoring by their starting point guard, Derek White. He finished with 25 points and 3 steals in 36 minutes. He shot 8 for 16 from the field and 7 for 8 from the foul line. Their starting point guard, DeJounte Murray, finished with 23 points, 12 rebounds, 7 assists, and 2 steals in 37 minutes. He shot 10 for 21 from the field and 3 for 7 from 3. Their shooting guard off the bench, Lonnie Walker IV, finished with 21 points and 2 steals in 30 minutes. He shot 7 for 13 from the field and 5 for 6 from the foul line. With this win, the San Antonio Spurs are now 8-13 on the season, and with this loss, the Golden State Warriors are now 19-4. Taking a look now at what went down in Portland, the Trailblazers hosted the Boston Celtics. The Celtics would end up beating the Trailblazers 145-117. Celtics won this game by 28 after they outscored the Trailblazers by 15 in the first quarter. They would outscore the Trailblazers by an aggregate 22 points in the second half. On the losing end of this matchup, the Trailblazers were led in scoring by their starting shooting guard, CJ McCollum. McCollum finished with 24 points and 6 assists in 35 minutes as he shot 8 for 21 from the field and 5 for 7 from the foul line. Their starting point guard, Dennis Smith Jr. out of North Carolina State, finished with 21 points, 6 assists, and 3 steals in 37 minutes. He shot 7 for 14 from the field, and he shot 6 for 8 from the foul line as well. On the winning end of this matchup, the Boston Celtics were led in scoring by their elite starting small forward out of Duke, Jason Tatum, and their starting point guard out of Germany, Dennis Schroeder. Tatum finished with 31 points, 10 rebounds, and 4 assists in 31 minutes as he shot 9 for 17 from the field, 4 for 6 from 3, and 9 for 10 from the foul line. Dennis Schroeder finished with 31 points and 8 assists in 32 minutes as he shot 10 for 16 from the field, 5 for 7 from 3, and a perfect 6 for 6 from the foul line. With this win, the Boston Celtics are now 13-11, and with this loss, the Portland Trailblazers are now 11-13. Taking a look now at what is going down in Sacramento, the Kings hosted the LA Clippers. The Kings would end up beating the Clippers 104-99 as the Kings were able to win this game by 5 after they outscored the Clippers by 5 in the second quarter, which was the difference in the game. The LA Clippers on the losing end of this matchup were led in scoring by Marcus Morris. He finished with 21 points and 8 rebounds in 32 minutes, shooting 7 for 10 from the field, 4 for 6 from 3, and 3 for 5 from the foul line. Their elite starting shooting guard, Paul George, finished with 15 points, 6 rebounds, 10 assists, and 2 steals, as well as 5 turnovers in 38 minutes. He shot 5 for 21 from the field, 3 for 7 from 3, and he shot a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. With this win, the LA Clippers, on the winning end of this matchup, the Sacramento Kings were led in scoring by their starting shooting guard, Terrence Davis. He finished with 28 points in 29 minutes. He shot 9 for 16 from the field, 6 for 11 from 3, and he shot a perfect 4 for 4 from the foul line. With this win, the Sacramento Kings are now 10-14. With this loss, the LA Clippers are now 12-12. Now taking a look at what's going on with international soccer. Starting off in the Premier League, Chelsea sitting at the top of the table fell just short to West Ham, as West Ham would win this one off of the 87th minute goal from Masuaku. And then Liverpool would go on to beat Wolverhampton, though, in their game 1-0, as their lone goal would come in the 94th minute from Daniel Origi. Manchester City was able to beat Watford 3-0, as their first goal came from their elite English forward, Raheem Sterling, and their next 2 goals will come from their Portuguese midfielder, Bernardo Silva. And also taking a look at what's going on in Spanish La Liga. Barcelona faced off against Real Betis, and Betis was able to beat Barcelona 1-0. Atletico Madrid fell short to Mallorca 2-1, as their lone goal came from Mateus Cunha. Real Madrid was able to beat Real Sociedad, on the other hand, 2-0, as their 2 goals came from their Brazilian forward Vinicius Jr. and Luka Jovic. In the German Bundesliga, it was a matchup of Der Klassiker, as Bayern Munich, the reigning Bundesliga champs, faced off against their rivals Borussia Dortmund. The game would finish 3-2 as Bayern finished up on top. First goal of the game was from Julian Brandt, the Dortmund's German national midfielder. Bayern would even it up 4 minutes later with a goal from their elite Polish striker, Robert Lewandowski. Bayern would end up taking the 2-1 lead off of a 44th minute goal from their French winger Kingsley Coman. Borussia Dortmund would tie the game at 2 in the second half with a goal from their elite Norwegian striker Erling Haaland, and then Robert Lewandowski's 77th minute penalty goal would be what Bayern needed in order for them to take this matchup 3-2. So that's how that game fared. And jumping to Italian Serie A, AC Milan hosted Salernitana and was able to pull off with the 2-0 win there. Inter Milan, their crosstown rivals, were able to beat Roma in Rome, as their second goal came from Edin Dzeko and their third came from Denzel Dumfries. And not to mention that Napoli was able to lose to Atalanta was able to beat Napoli, who's been incredibly good this season. That game ended 3-2 after Atalanta would have to come from behind 2-1 and score their last 2 goals in the second half. In Ligue 1, PSG would end up drawing with Lens as PSG's lone goal came from Gini Wijnaldum in the 92nd minute to tie the matchup. And then Lille was the reigning Ligue 1 champs, were able to beat Troyes 2-1 after they were able to take the lead off of a Troyes own goal. But with that said, that is everything that I have for you from yesterday, Sunday, December 5th. Once all of today's exhibitions and matchups are done, I will come back tomorrow on Monday, December 6th for another episode of The Elite. And until then, I want to thank everyone for listening. I hope all is well, and I will catch you tomorrow once we move through as we move through this calendar year of sports one day at a time. Thanks for listening to my piece. I hope all is well, and I'll catch you with another episode tomorrow. And thanks once again to the NCAA websites, NFL, NBA, and the FIFA websites. And I apologize if I butchered a lot of the names because I do plan on getting them right eventually. Once again, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you with another piece after this. Peace out.